President Interruption, but I'm Michael Wilbon. Bad news, Tone. We lost the Emmy again to Inside the NBA. Let's handle it with class.
He's a nerdy-looking guy. He's got a bow tie. His name is Ernie. Just kneecap him. Not both knees, just one knee. Kneecap the guy.
Charles, enough already, Chuck. You got enough Emmys. Share.
Yeah, he really does.
Did you just see in his house he's got a case with all these Emmys?
And as much as I like
Chuck.
them, they're not that good. All right, they're 40 days. We're going to classic distance, a mile and a half here. They're in the sprint. Come on. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Kevin Durant gets emotional, Richard Sherman gets paid, and Bill Polian joins us to answer some of our NFL draft concerns. But we begin today with the Indiana Pacers trying to reestablish the good chemistry they were known for months ago when they were actually good. Paul George put out a photo of him, George Hill, and Roy Hibbert fishing together like actual friends. Hill attacked the media for, quote, making up stories, unquote, about discord on the team, and coincidentally or not, the Pacers shut down their experiment with Andrew Bynum and sent him into exile. Wilbon, will all this work?
You know, Tony, I remember some teams, I'm going to answer this the long way. I remember teams that had all kinds of controversy, playoff time, people saying bad stuff about them, people writing bad stuff about them. The Bulls teams with Jordan, and did he go to Atlantic City, and Magic, and what did they do, and can they get along, and the Bird teams.
Shaq and Kobe.
You know what they did?
Stuff like that.
They won the games to the Pacers. Shut up. Play basketball, win the games. I don't want to hear this from George Hill. You know, I like David West's approach to all of this. He just talks about the team. This is on them to win the game. Don't blame it on the media. The media is not going 0 for 0 and not making shots and bickering and whining. Shut up and play.
It's interesting to me. I had Bobby Kravitz on from the Indianapolis Star on radio today, and I asked him about the disintegration of the team. He said, look, you hear all sorts of off-the-court rumors that you can't pin down. You hear that people are readying stories about these things, but I haven't read any of them. And he said, honestly, I'm watching it every day. I don't know what's wrong. Everybody knows something is wrong. I don't know what's wrong. I asked him about Hibbert. He said that Larry Bird has become disgusted with Hibbert and might even try to move him in the offseason. I think it does. It does to some degree land on Hibbert because the results are not there. You know, when he goes out of the game and you see him on the sidelines, he looks depressed. He looks like he doesn't want to be there.
The whole team looks like that, and we understand that. I get that. They're going through something you wouldn't wish on anybody.
But aren't they better than this?
These are proud guys who have made their way. They got to a Game 7 of Eastern Conference. They expected bigger things this year. So when you have this happen, which happens to teams often, stop whining and blaming other people. Look inward and figure it out.
I'll just say this. I don't know if Nene and Gortat go fishing together, but I know they were crushing Indiana in Game 1. I know that.
You expect the Pacers to come back and win tonight?
I do, because if they don't,
they're done.
They're done.
I expect them to win tonight, too. Then you know what? Then they can get the credit, not other people outside. Then take care of this yourselves.
You don't like fishing. That's why you're down on it.
I don't like fishing.
No, I know.
I'm a city guy. So are you. Let's look back to yesterday, Tony, and Kevin Durant's MVP acceptance speech, which is still drawing raves. You could see people in the audience, including teammate Caron Butler, openly weeping over Durant's humility, his humanity, and particularly over his acknowledging his mom's role in his success and of his bond with Russell Westbrook. Tony, can a speech on an off day inspire a team on the court in the playoffs?
I actually think it can. I mean, look, the question that I have, and I think most people have about Kevin Durant, is he selfish enough?
Right.
Is he going to be that great leader? Now, nothing in that speech made you think he was selfish enough, but he singled out every single teammate. He especially singled out Westbrook, and that's the crux of the issue. You've talked about this a lot. Is Westbrook usurping Durant's role? So if everybody basically says this, we love this guy like he loves us, we'll make sure he has the ball because we know he's the best player. In that sense, and they got to win. In that sense, I think it can.
I think it can too, Tony. I mean, you know, it's interesting. We talked about this in a college sense. We talked about it after the case with Tim Tebow some years ago. Remember that?
Yes.
He sort of did a rally, his whole program. I mean, nothing yesterday surprised me. Off the court here in Washington, D.C., I've gotten to know a little bit Kevin Durant, and this is what I hate to say this is what you expect of him, because that was an extraordinary moment, extended moment. But if those guys aren't affected by that, I would be shocked. And I think they're affected. They may not show it like Caron Butler, who has a a certain history of his own in various places, but they better
I think
respond
Westbrook
to that.
would be the most affected because he said, I love you and I've got your back.
I don't care what anybody else says, I got your back.
So I think, I do think it can. Now, I don't think it has any legs. I don't think it works in Game 3, Game 4, Game 5 down the road.
Well,
I think for one game.
Well, I think it can work down the road.
I think for one game, if they look at this guy as what he did for us, we've got to do this for him now.
We owe him. He's our leader. He's our guy.
He's not a selfish player.
He's not a selfish person.
Well,
so this is something to get over.
But don't you have to be?
I hope not, but maybe you have to be. Are they going to win tonight?
Oh, yeah. Okay. The 2 NBA playoff games last night, they were dogs.
Terrible.
The Heat pulled away from the Nets in the second half. They won by 21. The Spurs dominated the Trailblazers from the outset. They won by 24. Wilbon, which losing team ought to be more concerned, the Nets or the Blazers?
The Blazers. The Nets have people who have gotten blown out in a game 1, and they've come back, and they've had this happen over a period of 15 to 17 years. I'm talking about primarily Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett.
Right.
I know they can't physically respond in the way they'd like to because Father Time takes care of that.
Especially Garnett.
But they have emotional resources in them which will suggest, okay, here's what we need to do. Portland, they don't have that. They got terrific young players. They got LaMarcus Aldridge, who's not really young. He's a veteran. And they got Damian Lillard. But they haven't been in the playoff circumstances. Neither have Wesley Matthews. Neither have Nicholas Batum. They haven't been there like the Nets.
Legion of Batum.
You like that name?
I do.
So I know you're going to agree with me on this.
I'm not, and I'm going to tell you why. Portland, I think they could actually chalk this up to nerves. I don't think any of those guys have been in the second round before.
Right.
The Nets have guys who've been in a lot of rounds for a long time. Look, I watched that closely last night. There was a point in the third quarter where Miami put its foot on the gas pedal, pulled out into the passing lane, and was never seen again.
Yeah.
LeBron James and Chris Bosh scored at will, and I emphasize at will.
They did.
So I think if you're the Nets, you look around and you go, whoa, are we in for this all the time? They can't use nerves as an excuse.
I think if you're Jason Kidd, the coach, I think if you're Pierce and Garnett, who do a fair bit of work with the youngsters, you can see it even in timeouts. I think those 3 guys put their heads together, and Darren Williams, a veteran guy, has been in the conference finals, and they figure out something.
They don't have a lot of guys who have shown in the playoffs before, other than Pierce and Garnett. Can I mention one other thing? The people that want to compare Damian Lillard to Tony Parker. How does this taste?
Don't do that.
Damian Lillard last night, 17 points and 3 assists. Tony Parker, 33 and 9. Hello, goodbye.
Tony Parker now becoming one of the great point guards in the history of the NBA because of his body of work over these years.
Lillard's better than that, but let's not say right now the torch is passed.
Tony Parker, Damian Lillard in this series.
At the moment,
since the entire network is on the clock, we'd better get to the NFL draft too. Johnny Manziel's speculation is as hot as any subplot, and the Rams are at the center of it. Manziel participated in a private workout with the Rams last week, but so did other Aggies that was at A&M, and Jeff Fisher reminded reporters he took the head coaching job in St. Louis because of the owner, Stan Kroenke, and the quarterback, Sam Bradford. With all that in mind, Tony, would you prefer Manziel or Bradford?
Are you asking me?
I know, I should.
I'm the only one here, so
you've got to be asking me. You want to be Jeff Fisher?
I mean, I love Manziel. And I'm going to take Manziel because I love Manziel, right? I mean, you look at the body of Bradford's work right now. He's been in the league 4 years. He gets hurt regularly. When he plays, his record is 18-30-1 as a starter. He's got 59 touchdowns, 38 picks. That's okay, but he's never had even a top 20 offense. I mean, he's okay, but he was the #1 overall pick. If you haven't won with him, why don't you take Manziel?
Okay, let's put aside.
Manziel's a star.
Let's put aside, George Clooney man crush for a second.
Well, I got that.
Now, let's look at your Jeff Fisher and that organization. You're trying to win in a division with San Francisco and Seattle. And let's just say you've got Mack or Clowney sitting there. You're going to have one of them to take.
That isn't the question.
The
question is Bradford or
because
Manziel.
You're going to keep Bradford. You're going to pass on Manziel.
Okay, you know what?
You can add the defensive stud of your dreams.
Let's talk about a division with Russell Wilson and Colin Kaepernick, who are the same type of quarterbacks that Johnny Manziel is, on-the-run quarterbacks. Why wouldn't you want somebody like that?
Because you've got to stop those 2 quarterbacks to win. You got to at least slow them down. You got a defensive player you can add to that stud defensive line you've already got.
The question was, would you take Manziel or would you take Bradford?
You keep Bradford.
Bradford is an overall #1 pick, is probably one bad season away from being Tim Couch or David Carr right at this point.
Okay,
now, Manziel may be terrible, but is he going to be – has Bradford accomplished enough that you want to roll with him? That's the question.
I don't know, but you can roll with that great defensive stud for a long time. Reggie White.
You can.
Guys like that.
You
I don't want to say
if your assumption is that Manziel's going to be a bust.
No.
I don't know.
Listen, God, you are so...
The Seattle Seahawks
tank for this
gave your boy Richard Sherman a 4-year, $57 million contract today with $40 million guaranteed. Now, Sherman, who has played with a chip on his shoulder for years because he considers himself disrespected, smiled and said, quote, "I guess this is what it feels like to be a first-round pick," unquote. Wilbon is giving Sherman this deal risky for the Seahawks, considering the lack of staying power among DBs.
No, and I know where you're going with staying power. You hear me rage all the time in the office about Revis now being the greatest, corner of all time. Asamoah, all these guys, they come and they go. They come and they go.
They do?
There's no risk. First of all, it's an NFL team and they make trillions of dollars. It doesn't matter.
Well,
there's no risk.
You got a cap.
You got a cap, you get out from under it. They take cap hits. They rearrange contracts. It's not the NBA with a harder cap. So Richard Sherman, who's 26 years old, I think Tony can play 3 or 4 more years at this level, and then he might be like those guys too.
It also could be 2 years at this level because that's what they seem to have is 2 years at this level.
2 years. This is how your team is built. And Richard Sherman's going to say whatever he says. He played with a chip. He can play without a chip. He can play.
Richard Sherman's going to get a lot of commercials, and eventually he's going to end up in Tampa Bay like everybody else. Okay? But the reason you do this is because Pete Carroll has built this team on defense, and you have to reward your defense. Down the road, you got to reward Russell Wilson.
But you
don't have to do it now. Right. But you reward your defensive guys because you're saying to defensive players in the league, come here and play here. That's the way we win in Seattle. We win with defense in Seattle. I think it's a very good precedent.
Yeah, people will point and say, they locked up so much money in a corner and a safety. Well, that's how they won a Super Bowl.
Yes.
That's how they win. They're not just sold all the time on glamour.
And don't you get the sense that Pete Carroll, while he may be a star guy, really feels for other guys on the team, and he wants players to be happy. I think this was a very smart move, but I don't think that Richard Sherman's greatness is – I don't think he's Deion Sanders. Well, I don't know. Is he going to last 10? Is he going to last 10, do you think? Most guys aren't.
9 to 10? That's a few.
Most guys aren't. Let's take a break. Coming up, Bill Polian on why the NFL draft is so late this year and who he would take with the #1 pick.
And later, Tommy Lasorda. Remember Lasorda?
Yeah. Lasorda.
Tommy takes a shot at V. Stiviano.
Such a great name, isn't it? V. Stiviano. Come on. That is a great name.
These days, you can get practically anything on demand, like this podcast. Did you know you can even get postage on demand? You can with Stamps.com. No more going to the post office. No more waiting in line. Just go to Stamps.com and print all the postage you want, anytime you want. Anything you can do at the post office, you can do right from your desk with Stamps.com. Buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter or package using your own computer and printer. And, unlike the post office, Stamps.com never closes, so you can get postage whenever you need it. Right now, get this special offer from Stamps.com when you use promo code PTI, a no-risk trial plus a $110 bonus offer that includes a digital scale and up to $55 free postage. Don't wait. Go to Stamps.com and, before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the home page and type in PTI. That's Stamps.com, promo code PTI.
The interminable wait for this year's NFL draft is almost over. Here to help us break it down is a PTI favorite, Bill Polian. We'll start with this. You said yesterday that the majority of NFL people you talk to want the draft moved back to April. But Bob McGinn of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel tweeted that the NFL is looking at pushing the draft a week or two later next year. Does that make any sense to you?
Heaven help us. No, it doesn't, and here's why. You would be taking these players out of a month of football conditioning, and they badly need that. They've been on the workout circuit, on the combine circuit, not preparing themselves for football conditioning, and now they're going to go right from the draft on this weekend into mini camps next week, and that's pretty dangerous. You've already heard Marvin Lewis say that he's doing away with one part of his off-season program to accommodate this. I think to add 3 more weeks to it would really be pushing the envelope from a football standpoint, and I'm not sure that it's worth whatever the marketing advantage would be.
Well, Bill, there's also been reports, chatter, about 1 night per draft round, which would make it a whole week. Now, you've been on all sides of this draft thing, involved in preparing for it, and now involved in the actual draft coverage. Do you sense, either from yourself or colleagues, just a simple draft fatigue at this point?
Well, yes, I think so. The draft, when it was at the end of April, fell in the perfect niche. The Kentucky Derby was a week away. The Final Four was over. The hockey and basketball playoffs had not begun in earnest, and baseball was just beginning. So the draft had its own little spot there where it took up all of the oxygen in the sports world. Now, the Kentucky Derby's already been won, and we're talking about a potential Triple Crown winner. The playoffs are really heating up, and the series are great. Baseball is on in earnest, and now we've got the draft. It seems to me as though it's out of sync.
Well, let's move to the draft and players in the draft. We know all the chatter. It feels like I know all these people now already for like 2 years. But if you could take one player, you only have one player, no conditions, one guy you could have from this draft pool, who would it be?
Boy, is that a good question. It would be a tough choice between Jadeveon Clowney and Khalil Mack, and I probably would lean toward Clowney because he has all of the qualifications necessary to be a game-changing pass rusher, i.e. Bruce Smith.
You've talked about the defensive players that stand out to you and the ones you would draft if you could draft anybody. Let me move to offense for a second. Why is Blake Bortles your pick as the draft's top quarterback and not Johnny Manziel, who I have a complete man crush on? I think he's ready for the spotlight. You know what I mean? I just do. So go ahead.
I agree completely. Johnny is a separate category. Johnny is like Cam Newton, although in a much different body, and much more like Mike Vick from a body type standpoint. He is a guy who, if you draft him, you have to gear your offense to the skill set that he has. You don't take Johnny and say, okay, Johnny, we're going to make you an under-center, drop-back, prototypical NFL quarterback. No. That would be like saying to Clowney, you're going to be a middle-of-the-block nose tackle. It doesn't work. You're not using his skill set. So Johnny's in a separate category. And for a downtrodden franchise like Jacksonville or like Cleveland, for goodness sake, where they've had one playoff appearance in, 9 years or less, he would be ideal because he brings all of the things that you talked about, Tony. Everybody has a crush on him, and he has magic, but he's not prototypical. Bortles is prototypical. He does not have magic like Johnny has, but he does have a good enough arm. He does have a good enough head. He lacks experience at the position and is going to have to probably sit for a year. But in the end, Bortles has a chance to stay on the field 16 games a year and give you efficiency at the position. Johnny, you worry about injury with him because he makes his living with his legs. And as much as I love him, and I do, and as you know, Brian was on the staff at Texas A&M, my son, so I got to know him and see him up close and personal. He's magic. He's incandescent, but you worry about injury with him.
As always, Bill, thank you so much for joining us.
Much appreciated.
My pleasure, guys.
We're taking a break. When we come back, 2 oblivious fans narrowly avoid a foul ball to the face.
And Randy Whitman loses a bet to his Wizards. So, Randy, why don't you pay up?
Bill Polian's working harder on TV almost than he worked when he was a GM.
No, he's not.
He's exhausted. Happy time, people. Happy 63rd birthday, Randall Tex Cobb. Cobb is best known as the fighter whose inept performance against Larry Holmes ended not his career in boxing, but Howard Cosell's. Cosell was so disgusted calling the Cobb fight that he refused to ever call a fight again, which Cobb jokingly called his, quote, gift to boxing, unquote. Cobb later became an actor. He was terrific in Raising Arizona.
Cosell did the Olympic boxing tournament after that, but never a pro fight. Cobb said he'd go play in the NFL if he thought that would get Howard off of Monday Night Football. How funny a line is that?
Happy anniversary to 3 great NBA playoff moments. On this day 25 years ago, Michael Jordan made that jump shot over Craig Elo at the buzzer. 20 years ago, Dikembe Mutombo and the Nuggets became the first 8 seed to beat a number 1. And 19 years ago, Reggie Miller scored 8 points in 8.9 seconds to lead the Pacers over the Knicks and break Spike Lee's heart.
What a day for anniversaries, just to have those 3. Yeah, it's hard to top any of that until tomorrow, May 8th, the captain.
Lewis Reed, baby. Here comes the captain. Happy trails to the need for radical reconstructive facial surgery for these two guys. At the Orioles-Rays game last night, Baltimore's Steve Pearce yanks a pitch hard foul, and it threads the needle between two guys who were not paying attention. If that ball hit, there would have been a cranial catastrophe.
There's certain places in Major League Baseball and the NHL you don't sit. I don't ever sit in those seats.
But that was snap hook. That wasn't even down the line.
Where there's no possibility behind them.
That's usually a lefty hitter who hits it over there. Trying to find out we messed up reality.
I just looked it up. Tex Cobb did fight about 24 more times after that fight. Once for a belt. About the Blazers' playoff experience, told Mo Williams has been in this round before and beyond. Tim Duncan has as many postseason games as the entire Blazers franchise, 219 to 219. And I probably should have led with this. Breaking news, Swaggy P tweeting out that he will be the new Lakers coach.
There it is, player coach. Swaggy P, baby.
Swaggy.
Fire it up.
Big finish.
Let's do it.
Tommy Lasorda, your boy, says he doesn't wish any bad luck to Donald Sterling's girlfriend, but hopes she gets hit by a car. You can't say that.
Well, you can, because he said it. Clayton Kershaw pitched 7 shutout innings in his return to the mound last night. Convinced he's over his injury problems?
It's really good against the Nats.
Your
9
team,
strikeouts,
beat your boys.
no walks, velocity on a fastball up. Wizards coach Randy Whitman promised his team he would dunk if they beat the Bulls. He hasn't paid up. Can he still dunk?
He's not paying up.
He's 6'6".
He's 54 years old. No, Randy Whitman's a great coach. He's not dunking anymore. NBC secured the rights to the Olympics through 2032. $7.5 billion with a B. Good deal.
A lot of eyeballs for the Olympics. Big thing to have. Last one, Nolan Arenado of the Rockies. He's got a 26-game hitting streak. Is he going to get 27 tonight?
I don't know. He's a 23-year-old Gold Glove winner already, playing in the shadow of Tulowitzki. You're never even familiar with him.
We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time, and I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. Shaq, Kenny, congratulations.
Really?
Check out the podcast on iTunes.
Shout out.
PTI. What makes the Indy 500 the greatest spectacle in racing?
Back home again.
And we are playing. Everyone in the grandstands are on their feet.
And now the winner of the Indianapolis 500.
The Indianapolis 500, Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on ABC.